Hi everyone and welcome to session 3. So last week we looked at how you can increase the experiences of positive emotions by just building more positive moments into your life, and we were looking at the short-term happiness and really kind of feeling enjoyment in that moment. We also looked at the skill of the wise person accepts, and we considered how you can manage distress by using things like activities to distract yourself, contributing to others, making comparisons to others who are in worse situations, or even to yourself from when you felt worse. We looked at changing your emotions by creating opposite feelings, pushing your thoughts away, and replacing your thoughts with distraction. And also looking at intensifying your sensations, which again just gives your mind and body something else to focus on. In today's session, we're going to continue to focus on managing your emotions by building positive experiences into your life, but this time we're going to look at the long term. We'll also think about how you can feel more competent or successful and more in control of your life. And finally, we'll look at how you can manage distress by using your senses to self-soothe. So I'm going to put the learned outcomes for today's session on the screen now. Please take a moment to have a look through them. So we'll start with the concept of managing emotions, and to begin with we're just going to continue with the same concept as last week, so thinking about how we can build more positive experiences into our life. But this week we're going to focus on the longer term, because if we just focus on the short term then we're just going to be spending our life doing these really fun activities, socialising, doing things with our friends and things like that. But we're not really working towards any long-term goals, we're not really leading a fulfilling life. And that's the focus of today's skill, is to make sure that we're working to longer term goals, we're working towards our priorities, we're living a life that feels fulfilling. Before we can think about how we achieve our long term goals, we have to identify what those goals actually are. And the best place to start is by identifying our values and priorities, because it's important that if we're going to lead a fulfilling life, if we're going to have long-term goals that have meaning and purpose to them, then we need to make sure that they're in line with what we think is important, what we value in life and what holds a lot of meaning. So I've uploaded an information sheet to the Padlet and Facebook that just lists some priorities, some values, some principles that are quite common, and I want you to have a look through them and think about which ones relate to you. Which ones do you think are important for your future? What ones do you think you would like to achieve in the long term? And obviously feel free to add any other ones as well, but they're just there for some suggestions in case you're struggling to think of any. Once you've identified your values and priorities in life, you can then think about what your goal might be. So for example, if you've got a value or priority of wanting to be healthy, then your goal might be to get in better shape, to work towards being physically fit, to build in a healthier lifestyle. And that's not something that can happen overnight, so it is something that you have to focus on and set a goal for in the longer term and make sure that you're taking the steps to achieve that. So what I want you to do now is go back to your values and your priorities and have a look through them and think about what goals you might set based on one or two of them. It might be that you can look at all of them and think, yeah, there's a goal that meets all of them. Or it might be that you just have to pick one value or priority and think about what your long-term goal might be just for that one. But take some time to think about what your long-term goals are in life. You know, what it is that you would like to achieve, what it is that you would like to have more meaning in your life, what would help you to live more fulfilling life. So as I mentioned, we often have to take steps to achieve our long-term goals. It's not things that we can achieve overnight, it's not things where we can just do one big thing and achieve them. We have to break down that goal and take really small steps over time to eventually get there. So for example, with the goal of being healthy, some smaller steps might be to do some research around the local area and see what gyms there are, what health clubs there are, whether there's any forums or local support groups around healthy eating and things like that. A next step might be to actually go to one of those or plan to go to one of those. So you can see how you can break down that goal into smaller steps so that you can eventually get there. I've uploaded a worksheet onto the Padlet and Facebook that helps you just break down those steps. So there's various stages that you can go through to first identify your goal, but then look at what steps you need to take to get there. So take some time to fill out this worksheet and really think about what your long-term goals are and what steps you need to take to get there. If you're finding it difficult to identify goals or even the steps that you take, then please feel free to get in touch. I'm more than happy to help you think about what your goals might be based on your values and your priorities, and also to help you think about how you might break that goal down into more manageable steps. But once you've completed that worksheet, what I'd like you to do is use the next week to take that first step that you've identified, so really get the ball rolling on this longer term goal. Taking steps towards our goals can have a really direct and quick impact on our mood. And when we're consistently making steps towards long-term goals, then we're just setting up a life that is going to help us have more positive experiences in the future, make us feel better in the future. So make sure that over the next week you're taking that first step to reaching that long-term goal, because it will have a big impact on your mood in the moment, but also for the future as well. Similar to last week, it's important to consider our friends and family and other relationships when we're thinking about our long-term happiness. Because what we tend to find is if our relationships are strained, or if we feel that we don't really have a support network, then we can feel quite low and depressed. So if you think about your values and priorities in life, it might be that some of them relate to some of your relationships. So make sure that when you're thinking about your long-term goals, you're also thinking about the relationships that you have in life. What can you be doing to strengthen them and make sure that you've got good support around you when you're going along this journey? So those steps are essentially how you can build positive experiences for the long term, which is going to have a big impact on your mood. It's going to mean that you've got a more balance of positive emotions because you're leading a fulfilling life, you're leading a life that has meaning to it, you're leading a life that is in line with your values, your priorities and your principles. So next we're going to move on to how you can build feeling competent or successful and more in control of your life, which again is just going to help you manage those emotions, because if you're feeling successful and if you feel like you've achieved something, then you're going to be feeling much more happier and excited. This next skill is all about feeling more effective and in control in life. So why is this important? If you think about having a really long to-do list of things that you need to get done, even when you tick just one small task off that list, you feel really, really good about yourself. You feel like you've achieved something and you feel like you're getting on top of things and feel more in control. Sometimes even just writing the list can make you feel that you're more in control or that you've achieved something. So that's essentially how this skill is going to work. It's about building in things into your day that make you feel like you've achieved something, make you feel that you've done something good, and just make you feel a little bit more in control. Now it's important to note that this isn't always going to be something fun. So with the last couple of skills for managing emotions, it's been all about building those positive emotions by having positive experiences, things that we enjoy, things that bring happiness. But as I mentioned earlier, if that's all we do in our life, then we run the risk of getting bored, we run the risk of feeling like we're not really achieving anything, and that's where this skill comes in. So it helps you to just have a balance of having those things that you enjoy and that bring happiness, but also having things that help you feel like you're moving forward and having things that make you feel like you're achieving things in life. There might be things that combine the two. So it might be that, the thing that makes you feel like you're achieving is a hobby. So it's something that you enjoy, but actually you're moving forward with it as well. But I thought it was important to note that for this skill, it's not always going to be fun and enjoyable, because sometimes it is just ticking off those jobs that need to be done. So this skill has 3 stages. The first is to make sure that you plan something every single day that is going to make you feel like you've achieved something, that you've got better at something, that you've ticked something off your to-do list, or that just makes you feel more in control of your life or more productive. The second step is to plan for success and not for failure. So you want to make sure that what you're doing is challenging but not impossible. So make sure that the thing that you plan is realistic to your day-to-day experience. And then the final step is making sure that things get a little bit more difficult over time, so that it does feel like a challenge, so it does feel like you're achieving something. This isn't going to feel relevant to everything. So for example, if you're just ticking something off a to-do list, then it doesn't need to get difficult. But if you're, learning something new or wanting to get better at something, then it's important that you're progressing forward. Otherwise, you're going to reach a point where you don't feel like you're achieving something and it just feels really easy. So that's just something to bear in mind with the final one, is that if you are doing something that involves improving, that you're making sure that the difficulty does get harder over time. So now we move on to the managing distress part of the session, and today we're going to focus on self-soothing. So self-soothing is actually a form of self-care when we're in distress. It's a way of relaxing ourselves, feeling calm, bringing down our arousal. And in today's session we're going to focus on self-soothing by using our senses. So we're going to go through each of the senses and think about how you can self-soothe or relax yourself or bring comfort to yourself by using those senses. This skill is a really good one if you want to build an actual practical resource. So what people often do is put together a self-soothing toolbox. So this can be something like a shoe box or just a cardboard box that you've got, that you can place items in that you've identified that for you are self-soothing or calming or relaxing. So we have 5 key senses. The first one is our sight. So this is thinking about what things you look at that make you feel calm and relaxed or comforted. So if you think about your self-soothing toolbox, it might be that you think of photographs or images that you can put in there. It might be things like films that you could watch or videos that you could watch. You might go and walk somewhere, so if you find, woodland quite relaxing, it might be that you go for a walk in a local park. So it's thinking about how you could use your sight to feel calm, relaxed and comforted. Next, we'll think about sound. So this is thinking about things like music, instrumentals, or just general day-to-day sounds that you find really calming and relaxing that are going to help you feel self-soothed if you're distressed. If you're putting together a self-soothing toolbox, it might be that you put a CD in there, or put together a playlist, or even just a prompt like a card or something to tell you to listen to something. Because sometimes when we're really distressed, we can't remember these skills. So prompt cards can be really, really useful when you think about your self-soothing toolbox. If you're not using the toolbox, it might be that you try and seek those sounds in some way. So for example, you might go for a walk somewhere where you know you're going to hear those sounds. But it's really important that you have access to those sounds, quickly if you're feeling distressed. For me, it's things like, the rain on the windows, I find that really relaxing, a crackling fire. So some of these things are really easy to access through things like YouTube or on your phone. So just have a think about what sounds you might include to self-soothe if you are feeling distressed. If we think about smell, the list of examples could be absolutely huge. We have access to so many different smells, but again, it's thinking about what feels comforting and soothing and relaxing for you. So for example, it might be a perfume or an aftershave of a loved one. It might be a particular smell that just reminds you of home or your childhood or holidays that used to feel really relaxing for you. So if you're putting together a self-soothing toolbox, it might be that you put actual practical items in there, spray something with that perfume, put a little candle in there, put some essential oils in there that you find relaxing. If you're not using a self-soothing toolbox, it might just be that you have access somehow to those smells. So if it's something that's in nature, it's making sure that you can walk somewhere and access them. It might be that you carry things with you that again just gives you access. So one example is I use essential oils quite a lot. So I bought a de-stress roller, and what I do is when I'm feeling really stressed or anxious or worked up, I will just roll this on my wrist, and it just means that I get a waft of it ever so often. It just really helps me calm down. So again, just think of smells that would help you to self-soothe. Touch is a really great one, and again there's lots of examples for this. So it might be that there's things that you hold or stroke or cuddle that feel self-soothing. It might be something as simple as putting some hand lotion on your hands and rubbing it in and massaging your hands. So again, think about things that you could put in your self-soothing toolbox that's going to help you access this self-soothing tool. Or think about other things that you could do that you can access that involves touch that helps you to calm down. Things that might be a little bit more subtle are things like playing with your hair. So I know for me, when I'm feeling really anxious, I do play with my hair a lot more. There's rings that you can buy that you can put on your hands that you can, flick and play with. Fidget toys, anything like that that's going to help you self-soothe is going to be really, really useful. And the final key sense is taste. So again, it's thinking about things that you can taste that bring comfort, that make you feel calm or relaxed, or just self-soothe you in some way. So if you're putting together a self-soothing toolbox, don't be afraid to put food in there. Don't be afraid to think of things that you could eat that bring you comfort. So for example, the best example is chocolate. Chocolate often makes people feel more relaxed or brings some kind of comfort. If you're not using a self-soothing toolbox, think about how you can have access to these things if you do get distressed. So the key things is just knowledge and awareness. So knowing what brings you comfort, so that, for example, if you're out and about, you could just pop into a shop and buy them. Or just having things on your person like sweets, for example, that you can suck on if you're feeling distressed. So again, just thinking about what things you can taste that are going to bring you comfort and make you feel self-soothed if you are feeling distressed. So I've uploaded a worksheet onto the Padlet and Facebook that just allows you the space to think about how you would use your senses to self-soothe. It gives you a space to think about the 5 senses that we've talked about today and to provide examples that are personal to you to put together a self-soothing plan. If you're putting together a self-soothing toolbox, this worksheet will be great for you to think about what items you're going to put in there, how you would go about it. So if you are going to put together a self-soothing toolbox, start hunting for things like shoe boxes or cardboard boxes. Decorate it so that it looks nice and that it looks self-soothing as well. So really have some fun with this one and think, creatively about how you might use it at home, how you might use it if you're out and about, because we have to remember that we don't know when we're going to get distressed, so we have to be planned for all different situations. So make sure that you take the time to think about that and how you might use this skill. So thinking about your senses and self-soothing and putting together your plan is just part of the activity for this week. Of course, I also want you to practice this skill. So go through your list and identify just one thing from each sense that you could practice this week. You don't have to be distressed when you practice it. The idea is that you get the practice in so that when you are distressed, it works a lot better. So for example, practice your mindfulness skills. If you think about smell, practice really smelling it, taking in all of the details of it. If you're focusing on touch, practice whatever it is that you've identified. If it's something like hand lotion, practice what feels nice when you're rubbing it in and practice massaging your hands. So over the next week, make sure that you're also practicing this skill so that when you are distressed, it is much more effective. So in today's session, we've looked at how you can manage your emotions by building positive experiences for the longer term and also making sure that you're having experiences where you feel successful and in control of your life. We've looked at how you can manage distress by using your senses and by self-soothing so that when you're feeling distress, you know how to bring comfort, relaxation and calm. Next week, we're going to think about how you can cope ahead and plan ahead for distressing situations to make sure that you've got the skills to cope with them. We're going to look at using the pros and cons in a slightly different way to make sure that you're responding in more positive ways. We're also going to think about how you can look after your mind through your body. And then finally, we'll think about how you can manage distress by trying to improve the moment in some way. So thank you again for watching today's video and I hope the information has been useful. Make sure that you use the next week to practice your skills so that they are really effective in those situations where you do feel distressed or when you feel in a negative way.